Far and away from the gravity wells that man call home are the oases of the stars, the stations of Stanton. Hey guys, I'm Morphologist and welcome back to An Architect Reviews, a series in which I utilize my professional skills in the field of architecture to examine something in the digital realm. Today we're critically examining the space stations of Star Citizen. I'll take you through a typical design in the game, and then I'll go about talking about what I find to be successful, and point out things that I feel might be able to be improved, while providing some possible solutions. First though, a special shout out to the Armco community which helped make this video possible. I wouldn't have been able to shoot the footage you see in this video, so if you want to find out more about this awesome community that I'm a part of, check out the description below. Oh, and if by the end you think I deserve it and you'll like the content that I make, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so I can see you in the next video. In the real world, architectural design is very much defined by its utilitarian need first and its appearance second. Form following function, in other words, with rare exceptions being expressions of art when the budget is astronomical. Star Citizen does have a budget in a way that's a budget in what your GPU is able to handle, and so really, the designers are tasked instead with figuring out what story they want to tell. How can it be a device to add something to the experience of the user, in this case us, the players of Star Citizen? In this case, I think it's clear. It's telling a story about scale. But it's not just about the scale of stations, it's also about the scale of planets. Having a reference point that we can recognize at a human level gives us an understanding of just how big the planets are in Star Citizen. But clearly the designers didn't overlook the fine details here either. They did pay close attention to trying to make it look believable. Their modular-looking design with mechanical components makes it look like it could exist in some distant future. This is all part of trying to sell it through the details. This is very important to finish off a design, as even just having the big idea isn't enough. You also need to execute the details well, and I think they've done a fantastic job on station exteriors in convincing, well, at least me, that this could be something that we might build in some 900 years from now. These two components, the big and the small, the details and the big idea, combine to create a cohesive and iconic look for Star Citizen stations. Now, some may be quick to point out that these space stations look like similar stations we might have seen in famous movies such as Star Wars. And yes, that's true, especially for the circular one, but they didn't invent that look either. Everything is iterative and is built upon. So I wouldn't have expected them to completely reinvent the wheel here, but they've done just enough to make it uniquely theirs. But what about the interior? Examined here in these isolated moments, the experience is truly breathtaking. The designers over at CIG have done just a phenomenal job, in my opinion, in all of these spaces. But herein lies the issue. In a photo album, or here in my selective artistic shots, if you want to call them that, they work. But that's not how we experience interior space or architecture. We experience it by moving through it, and we measure its success subconsciously by how convenient it is, how legible it is to the user without ever having been to the space, so your ability to wayfind and understand where you're going, as well as its programmatic adjacencies. Program being roughly described as the list of spaces inside of a design, and adjacencies describing their relationship to one another. So for example, the bar would be best served being adjacent to maybe a gathering space, and isolated from, say, where people might be resting in the habs. And while acoustic comfort makes absolutely no difference in a video game, you're not sleeping inside the virtual realm yet. It does play into how we read spaces subconsciously because we base it off of our real-world experiences. Now, CIG has gone about developing a brilliant system wherein code determines the spatial relationships automatically to generate stations infinitely upon demand so that they can have unique stations for each location. It does, though, however, still require the guiding hand of an artist just to make sure that what has been generated actually works, and where it doesn't, an environment artist will go in and correct the mistake. This, unfortunately, is antithetical to what I would describe as good architecture. It's not generated by a computer, rather it's well thought out by a human being who's tasked with thinking about the intricacies of human interaction and how each space might benefit one another, how a sort of synergy can be created between spaces that work together. This, unfortunately, though, is necessary to complete all of the star systems that are slated to be in Star Citizen. So please note that the criticisms that follow are really just meant to help, let's say, polish the existing system. Now, programmatic adjacencies and synergy might seem like nebulous terms. All that means is you're putting stuff together that fits with something else. For example, you wouldn't put a place to buy clothes directly in the middle of a food court because people are there to buy food, not to buy clothing. And here's where things really start to fall apart in the design. Well, some of those individual spaces are great. You start getting weird things like what was in that corner. And you get these weird wayfinding situations where everything kind of looks like a place you can go and like it leads somewhere important, but then you get to the end of the hallway and where you thought the Habs might be is instead some sort of isolated rest area that has way too big of a hallway to really justify that being there. I mean, it looks like it should be more important than it is. There's a lack of hierarchy to the space. And I tested myself by going to one of the stations that I hadn't visited yet and just trying to find my way around, and I found myself getting lost on the first try. I really had to explore extensively to figure out where everything was, and that's not really good design, unfortunately. Being an active part of the community and streaming pretty often over on Twitch, I have interacted with a lot of you guys and talked to you guys about what you felt about the design of the stations, and many people point to the solution of putting signage or maybe color coding the lines on the floors, etc. to direct people where to go. Maybe even have a directory with a map. Well, these are all solutions. They're more band-aids on the issue. The issue is that these spaces don't really have any hierarchy to them. That is to say, it's really hard to tell where the central hub is that connects all the program. With the current design methodology, it creates some very undesirable scenarios, such as here in this example where after entering the station, you're led from a small hallway that connects to a store to what is supposed to be, I think, the hub. But those larger spaces aren't necessarily substantially larger than the connecting spaces around them. And so you're not really quite sure where the central area is, and so you can get lost pretty easily. This leads us to one possible solution, and that's examining the hierarchy of spaces to assist in promoting better wayfinding in the space without signs. In wayfinding, it's good to have a place that is memorable, a large object. So say in a big city, having a clock tower is a great way to understand where the center of the town is, and you'll always know relative to where you are, if you can see that clock tower, how to get back to the center of town from where you've gone. These stations need some version of a clock tower. Now, since we're not outside, an actual clock tower is not going to work, so a solution is, of course, to just scale up those lobby spaces substantially, and to always make sure that entry is into the lobby of the station. You're not ever entering into some weird hallway. You're right there at the beginning where you can find the eventual, I hope, directory and maybe even a map. I mean, these are still important things, but they're only secondary to the design itself. Also remember that not everybody speaks English natively or will be able to understand signs in English. So architecture, the design of interiors, still trumps having signage. The organization of the spaces and their legibility and wayfinding are big problems, but they're not the only ones that I find with these stations. Their exteriors are beautiful, but they don't really have any relationship in my mind with the interior spaces. Now, for some of them, they are orthogonal type stations. They're long and spiny, but a lot of them are also quite circular, like this one over ArtCorp Area 18. You walk on the interior and it looks like any of the other stations. It's not circular in any way, and that is quite disappointing for me. I like it when the exterior of a structure or design starts to hint at what's to be experienced on the interior. It makes it more unique and memorable. To resolve this problem, I think it connects with the first. You make the large lobby space that you connect directly to larger to match the scale of the exterior of the building just a little bit better, like twice as big or 3 times bigger, just for that central important lobby space. And for the circular stations, you make it a slightly curved space so that you can really feel that you're in a curved station. This is, again, more preference, but I think it would sell the station's interior just a bit better and make them feel more like unique, bespoke locations. Now, I could continue to be critical of other things like the fine details, but to be honest, I really don't have an objection to them. Yes, you couldn't do them in the real world, there's a lot of tripping hazards here, but it's gotta be visually interesting to look at. It's a video game set very distant in the future, and it has to feel that way. Overall then, the stations in Star Citizen are successful. With some polishing to the existing system, they could be fantastic. The exteriors are magnificent, iconic, and I'm excited to see what other stations we'll see in the future. But share your guys' thoughts down below. Whether you're a junior designer or not even in the design field at all, everybody's voice counts and can have a good idea. And I want to know what yours is down below. This series is not just meant to be critical of CIG, but to also help inform the general public about design in general. So I hope you guys learned something, and if you did, you know what to do. I've been Morphologist. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you out there in the verse.